Okay, so you guys seem to really enjoy the long story times. I don't really know why you guys want to hear me yap for 30 minutes a day, but it seems to be the theme here. So as long as you guys keep smashing these videos with support and saying you want more, I will oblige. I will yap for hours if you want me to. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys, like most of my videos when I'm done recording them are pretty long to begin with. I have to cut out a lot of like minor details or just like parts of the story where I don't think are very important. I'll cut those out and I'll make it down to like, I don't know, 8 to 10 minutes instead. So I'll keep doing the long ones if you want. Now today's story time is about the time that I spent the night in an abandoned church. It was very creepy, I was by myself, and it's one of those moments where I look back on it and I think, wow, I'm really lucky that I didn't die that night. Yeah, this is definitely a good one. Leave a like on the video if you enjoy it, and let's jump into it. So this story time all takes place back when I was 14 years old.
Did you say 14? Should I tell it?
Shut up. Anyway, yeah, the story time takes place when I was 14 years old, okay? Now, around this time, I was definitely starting to get a little bit more rebellious, a little bit more, I don't know, annoying, I would say. Definitely a little bit more just going against the grain, I guess. I don't know. I was just going through that, like, rebellious puberty phase of my teenage years. And I don't really talk about it, but I was the youngest of, like, 5 or 6 siblings. I had 4 older brothers, 1 adopted brother, a sister, and another brother that was adopted, essentially. So, like, I was the youngest kid in the house, and my older brothers loved messing with me. And I'm sure anyone that has an older brother probably can relate to that. They like trolling you a little bit. It's just how it works. And honestly, I miss those days when I look back on them. But on this day in particular, one of my older brothers was messing with me a little bit too much. And me being 14, me being just not in the mood, I wasn't having it on this day. So I'm sitting in the kitchen, right? I'm just sitting there. I was eating some cereal. It was after school. I just wanted like a snack, so I was just eating cereal at the table. And my brother comes in, who was like 7 years older than me, right? He goes up to the kitchen counter and he grabs the salt shaker off the kitchen counter and he comes up to my cereal and he starts pouring salt into my cereal while like maniacally laughing like a supervillain. And I got pissed, right? Like I was angry. All I wanted was the cereal and he was ruining it for me. So I stood up, grabbed my bowl of cereal, and I threw it at him. I didn't let go of the bowl. I just like threw the cereal and the milk at him essentially. And yeah, it hit him in the face. It got all over his shirt. It ruined his nice shirt. He was very upset about it. And from there, he started trying to hit me and I was trying to hit him and we were just, getting into it, right? And my mom hears this commotion and she runs out from her room and she's like, "What the hell's going on? Stop it, both of you." And we both stop and I look at her and I was like, "Mom, he came over and he poured salt in my fucking cereal." And she's like, language, stop it, Austin. And then my older brother's like, "Well, he fucking threw his cereal at me." And she's like, language, both of you. You know what? You're both grounded. 2 weeks, both of you. And I was like, 2 weeks for what? I didn't do anything. He provoked me. And she's like, "I don't care. You threw cereal at him. You can't do that." And I'm like, whatever. And I walked out of the kitchen, went to my room, slammed the door, jumped on my Xbox, started playing some video games. And like 5 minutes later, my mom opens my door and she's like, "What part of grounded did you not understand? You can't play Xbox." And I was like, "I'm going to play Xbox." She's like, "No, you're not." And she walked over and she unplugged the power cord from my Xbox. To which your boy was furious. Okay, I was angry. I was upset. I wasn't having it. So I told her, I was like, "Give me the power cord back." She's like, "No, you're grounded. You can have it back in 2 weeks." I was like, "If you don't give me that power cord back, I'm running away." She's like, "No, you're not." And I was like, "Okay." So I turned around, flipped the switches on my window, unlocked it, opened it up, and I said, "Last chance." And she goes, "You're really going to do this? I'll just call the cops." I go, "Okay." And I jumped out the window. Yeah, your boy definitely had an attitude that day. I was definitely not in the mood for anything, definitely being a little bit too rebellious, right? So I jumped out the window, and I proceeded to run in the other direction of my house, down the street, onto the corner, and then I turned the corner, went down some other road, and before I knew it, I was like a mile away from the house. I was running. Now, after I got like a mile away, I was just like standing there on the side of the road, wondering what to do next. Because I'm not going to lie, I didn't really think ahead, okay? I jumped out that window with no phone. My phone was on the bed still, forgot to grab that. I didn't have any clothes for the next day or the next couple days. I didn't have anything that I really needed, right? All I had was my wallet that had my school lunch card in it, my school ID, and like a $5 bill for snacks at school. So yeah, it goes without saying, but your boy didn't have shit. I was pretty much like screwed for the night. So I'm thinking like, okay, what can I do with $5? I have $5. That can probably buy me like a burrito or two from Taco Bell. So that's what I did. I walked to the nearest Taco Bell. I lived like 2 miles from one. So I walked to it, got there in like, I don't know, 30 or 40 minutes. I ate 2 burritos and a cup of water. So that was cool, I guess. It was mid, but yeah. And then after that, I walked out of there And now I had nothing to do and I had no money. I can't lie. At this point, I was regretting running away, especially without my phone. I just had nothing to do, no one to call. I couldn't even call a friend up and be like, hey, can I sleep over tonight? I have nowhere to go. Yeah, I couldn't even do that. So at this point, I had two choices. One was a smart choice and one was a not so smart choice. And you can probably guess which one I picked before I even say them. But the smart choice would be to turn around, go back to my house, go to sleep, and just take my grounding like a man. Or two, keep roaming around aimlessly outdoors, maybe try and find some quarters to use at a payphone, and then try and call a friend or someone I know to let me sleep at their house. And yeah, Mr. Dumbass Luna picked option 2. So I started roaming around the Taco Bell parking lot and like around the streets nearby, trying to find quarters on the ground to try and use them at a payphone and call someone I know and find somewhere to sleep, right? And yeah, back in the day, there were still payphones. I mean, this was when they were kind of phasing them out, so they were like kind of slowly going away, but there were still a few left in my area. So yeah, I started roaming around the parking lot at Taco Bell and the nearby streets, and I couldn't find any quarters. I just kept finding pennies. And finally, I decided to do something a little bit scummy. I went back into Taco Bell and I asked them for another cup of water. And when the staff wasn't looking, I put my hand in the tip jar and I stole like $1 worth of quarters. And yeah, pretty scummy, man. I robbed Taco Bell for a whole $1 of quarters. So yeah. So after this, I went outside and I crossed the street to a nearby Walmart where there was like some payphones in the plaza. And I proceeded to go up to the payphone, put the quarters in, and then I had to think, shit, which phone numbers do I know off the top of my head? And I only knew 3 off the top of my head. That was my dad's, my mom's, and my uncle's. So I decided to dial my uncle's phone number. I call him up, it rings, it rings, it rings. He doesn't fucking answer. And I just felt defeated, man. So I left him a message. I was like, hey uncle, it's Austin. I'm at a payphone right now outside of Walmart. I ran away. I don't really know where I'm going to sleep tonight, so I was calling you to see if I could crash on your couch or something. If you get this, please come to the Walmart on this road. I'll be here for like 15 or 20 more minutes waiting for you, so bye. And I hang up, right? And I sit there at the Walmart parking lot for like 20, 25 minutes, and he doesn't come. And I'm like, okay, it's starting to get dark. It's starting to get, laid out. I need to find somewhere to sleep where I'm not going to get like robbed or kidnapped. So I found this nearby walking trail and I started walking along it, just trying to see if there's like any wooded areas where I could like go in and find like some trees to climb and like hide up there for the night or something. Because like at this point, I was accepting the fact that I wasn't going to sleep. I was like, all right, like I'm not going to be able to find anything that's comfortable or that's warm. So I'm just going to have to like find some tree and just like sit there for the night until the sun comes back up. Because I did not trust sleeping outside with no like sleeping bag or tent or anything. I just feel like it would have been way too uncomfortable and I would have been way too vulnerable for like someone to mess with me. So I just didn't want to sleep that night. So anyway, I kept walking this trail, and after walking it for like 1.5 miles, it led me to some woods. And I went into the woods, which was creepy as hell, because at this point the sun was setting and it was very dark, but I could just barely see. And I'm like looking around the woods, and I just can't see anything that looks good enough to like climb up or anything that looks good to like, chill for the night. It's just a bunch of like dying trees essentially, right? Well, another mile of walking led me to a discovery that I did not expect, okay? I found a completely rundown, abandoned church in the middle of the woods. It's like some shit you would have saw from a horror movie, dude. Like, I saw this, and my first thought was, okay, it's probably pretty warm in there, but there's also probably like a monster waiting in there to eat me or something, so maybe I shouldn't go in there. But I can't lie, I was desperate, I wanted to be warm, it was cold, it was dark, I didn't really know my way out of the woods, and I was feeling pretty much hopeless at this point. So my stupid 14-year-old self walked up to those front doors of that church and I tried to open them. And of course, they were locked. I mean, it's an abandoned building. The doors are usually locked. So I'm like, shit. Okay, I gotta find another way in. So I start circling the perimeter of this church trying to find like a broken window or like some sort of entrance, right? And to my luck, in the back, I see a broken stained glass window. I'm like, okay, I can get through that. So I stacked up some like garbage outside the church and stood on top of it and then jumped through the broken window and I made it inside. And it was just as creepy on the inside as it was on the outside. That shit was fucking terrifying looking, like seriously terrifying. But it was a lot warmer in there. Nobody seemed to be in there. I seemed to be by myself. And I felt kind of peaceful and safe for once. So I sat down at one of the abandoned little pews. I like sat down in the seat. And I'm just sitting there, and I put my hand over my head, and just like break down essentially. Cause like I just didn't know what to do. I was in the middle of the woods in an abandoned church, no one to call, no phone, and it's getting pitch black out to the point where I'm not gonna be able to see like a foot in front of me. So yeah, after breaking down for a solid, like, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, I kind of like pulled myself together and I was like, okay, you know what? You got to be strong. You got to make it through the night. You got to show your parents who's boss, that you mean business. And like, yeah, that's what I was thinking, right? When in reality, I could have just went home and, probably like did some chores and been ungrounded 2 days later on good behavior. But yeah, no, I chose to sleep in an abandoned, creepy church. So like an hour goes by, I'm still sitting on the same pew. I have no water, by the way. I drank all the water that I had from my Taco Bell cup. At this point, the sun's completely down. It is quite literally pitch black. And I'm just sitting there with my own thoughts. I'm literally so bored, I was trying to like rerun episodes of TV in my head. Like crazy, bro. I was sitting there like trying to remember what episodes of TV I liked. Like I was watching Drake and Josh in my head. It was ridiculous. I also was completely terrified because I didn't even explore the entire church yet. I pretty much just got in the church and then sat down at one of the pews and just sat there. So like I didn't go downstairs and like check the basement. I didn't check like, all the other rooms in the church. I was just in the main room and it was too dark to go look now. I had no flashlight. I had nothing. It was just pitch black. It was so creepy, right? All I had was my hearing and my smelling. So I was just hoping I didn't hear anything or smell anything weird coming towards me. So I end up sitting in this pew at this church for like, I don't know, 2 hours maybe? It's hard to keep track of time because I had nothing to keep track of time. Probably like 2 hours though. And all of a sudden, I start hearing noises from outside the church. And it wasn't like, animal noises or like stuff that you would normally hear in the woods. No, it sounded like people. In fact, it was 100% people. It sounded like twig snapping, like footsteps, and it sounded like two people having a conversation. I could hear a man's voice and a woman's voice. And as the sound got closer, all of a sudden, I could kind of see, right? Like there was a light. And I looked up and I realized it was a flashlight. There was two people at the broken stained glass window that I used to jump through and get in the church at the same window. And they were shining a light inside the church with the flashlight. And I like peek over and I can see this guy. This guy is like in the window with his flashlight looking through. And I immediately ducked down, right? Because I don't want him to see me. And then like, who knows what would happen. So I just ducked down and I try and hide, right? And like, I didn't know if it was a cop. I didn't know if it was some teenagers just exploring the abandoned building. I didn't know if it was a homeless guy. I was terrified. So I'm just like crouched down behind one of the pews. And all of a sudden I start hearing them coming into the church. I can hear them climbing through the stained glass window and I hear them drop down. And as I listen to their voices, they sound kind of young. They don't sound like they're, kids, but they don't sound like they're adults either, if that makes sense. They sounded like they were, I don't know, maybe 17, 18 years old. And I quickly realized, like, through their conversation that it was a couple. It was boyfriend and girlfriend. It was these two people that were dating, right? And at first, it was just, like, harmless conversation. They were just exploring the church together. I could hear them walking around with their flashlight, and I was just hoping they wouldn't come over to me and see me. And they were just talking about how creepy it was in there, like, how crazy this place was, essentially. And then I start hearing them kiss. I start hearing them make out. And I'm like, ugh, like, really, bro? Like, this is weird. This feels weird. So I decide, you know what? I'm going to make myself known. I'm going to just stand up and go, hey, I'm in here. I need help. I got to get out of here. I can't see. You know what I mean? Like, I was out of options. I needed help. So I stood up and I was like, hey, over here. And they both, like, freak out. The guy's like, oh, fuck. And the girl, like, screams, right? And then he shines the light on me and realizes that I'm just a kid. And he's like, dude, you scared the shit out of me. What are you doing out here this late? And I was like, I ran away from home. I don't have a phone with me. I didn't know where I could sleep or like be safe for the night. So I came in here. And he's like, dude, this place is not safe for a kid. Like, how long have you been in here? And I was like, I don't know, like probably between 2 and 3 hours, maybe longer. I'm not sure. He's like, dude, do you live near here? I'm like, I'm a few miles away, but yeah, not too far. He's like, all right, follow us. I'm going to take you home. And I was like, I don't want to go home. Like, I ran away for a reason. I don't want to go back. And he's like, bro, how old are you? And I was like, 14. And he comes up to me and he like sits down in the pew next to me and he's like, listen, dude, I was 14 just a few years ago. I promise you, it gets better. I know what it's like, dude. I know what it's like to be 14 and get into a fight with your parents or your family and, want to run away and just never come back. But bro, you're 14. You have to go home. Like, you can't survive on your own at 14. You have to wait a few more years. And then when you're 18 or maybe even 17, maybe when you're younger, you can move out. But you got to wait till at least then, bro. And I was like, how old are you? He's like, I'm 17. I turn 18 next month. I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, dude, listen, trust me. I know you don't want to hear this right now, but like, you got to go home. And I was like, I don't want to. He's like, okay, is there somewhere else I can take you? Like another family members that like I can trust you with? And I was like, yeah, my uncle. He's like, okay, like, do you have his number? And I was like, yeah. And he hands me his cell phone. He goes, call him. So I call my uncle, and my uncle answers this time, right? He's like, hello. And I was like, hey. And he's like, Austin, where are you, man? Like, I've been looking for you. We're all looking for you. And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm with some people. They're going to take me to your house. He goes, who are you with? And I was like, what's your name? And the dude's like, Brian. And I was like, his name's Brian. And he's like, put Brian on the phone. So I hand the phone back to Brian, and he's like, hey, sir, I just ran into Austin here in this abandoned church. Not safe for a kid. I'm just trying to get him somewhere safe. What's your address? Like, text it to me. I'll bring him over. And my uncle did not trust this dude. He thought it was like someone trying to kidnap me. He's like, no, don't bring him anywhere. Like, you send me where you guys are, and I'll come to you guys. And he's like, okay, I can do that. So he like hangs up, and he texts the location to my uncle. And we're just like sitting there in this abandoned church, just chilling there. And I really respected this Brian dude, this random like older kid that was there, because he just kept like talking me down from feeling like shit. He basically just kept saying like, bro, I was in your same shoes a couple years ago, dude. Like, I hated my parents. I wanted to just leave and get out. And like, I promise you, man, as you get older, you're going to learn to love them a lot more and understand why they do what they do. And like, you'll respect them more. And like, even though in the moment I didn't want to hear that because I still had what felt like an eternity until I was 17, 18, he was right, because all those years later, I did respect my parents a lot more. But yeah, in that moment, I definitely just like didn't want to listen, right? But like 15, 20 minutes later goes by, my uncle calls him back, and he's like, hey, I'm in like this nearby parking lot. I can't really see the church that you guys are talking about. Can you guys come to me? And my uncle sent the location to the dude, Brian. And yeah, we walked over to the parking lot that was like through these woods. And we saw my uncle there, and we walked over there. My uncle gave the dude a hug and then hugged his girlfriend because they essentially rescued my ass. I would have been in that church all night, just like alone and terrified. And yeah, after that, I said goodbye to them, and my uncle drove me back to his house, and I spent the night at my uncle's house. I actually spent the week at my uncle's house that week because I did not want to go back home. But then eventually I went back home, and I, just took my grounding. Like a big boy, I just, lived the 2 weeks of being grounded, and honestly, it wasn't even that bad. And yeah, my mom was obviously extremely relieved to see I was okay as well. After my uncle picked me up, he told her that I was good. So yeah, all in all, a very creepy night, a very scary night. I don't advise running away and trying to sleep in a church. That is not the way to do things. And yeah, that's pretty much the end of the story. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below, and subscribe if you're new. I will see you all later. Peace.
I'm staying up and you won't take my place. I made